Hey guys, it's Elise and welcome back to My Cupcake Addiction. Today I'm super excited to team up with Nestle Toll House and bring you guys an amazing Rainbow Love Heart surprise inside bundt cake. This is perfect for Valentine's Day, but this is also an amazing cake to share all year round. The things that you're going to need, I'm using Nestle Toll House semi-sweet morsels today, and I'm also going to use Nestle Toll House cocoa powder. You'll need some food colorings and make them nice and bright, and I've also got some flour, I've got butter, vanilla, a little oil, some eggs, and I've got some sugar. You'll also need some whipping cream. I'm going to leave all of your measurements down below, as well as conversions depending on where you are and whether you're using self-raising flour or plain flour or purpose flour with a little pinch of baking powder. I've got a Love Heart cookie cutter, some snap seal bags, I've got a serrated bread knife, and I'm using quite a large tray, a cookie tray or a brownie tray that I've lined with some baking paper, a bundt tin, and I've got a bowl and a mixer over to the side. Let's get started. The first thing you want to do is we're going to make up your vanilla cake. This is my favorite recipe, and we're going to do a double batch because we need quite a bit to make our Rainbow Love Hearts. So in goes my butter. You want to put that in with your sugar and also your oil and vanilla. We're going to beat that up until it's really nice and light and fluffy, about 3 or 4 minutes. Once you're happy that's nice and light and fluffy, we're going to add in our eggs. I'm going to leave all of your measurements for this vanilla cake and separate it into the vanilla cake and the chocolate bundt cake on the My Cupcake Addiction website, and I'll link to that post down below, so make sure you check it out for everything you need to bake this cake. Once your eggs are in, you just want to give them a quick mix through. Make sure they're really, really well combined. I'm going to scrape down the sides of my bowl just to make sure that my mix is nice and evenly mixed, and then you're going to add in your flour and your milk, and we're going to mix it not too long here because we don't want to overdevelop the glutens in our vanilla cake. So you just want to give it a quick mix until you can't see any more loose flour in there and everything's combined. Start it off nice and slow so you don't end up with a massive dust storm. Beautiful, my vanilla cake mix is lovely and thick and delicious, and now I'm going to divide it evenly between 6 bowls. It doesn't matter how much batter you have in each bowl, so long as they're all roughly the same. Once your batter's divided evenly into 6 bowls, you want to colour it 6 different colours and choose your favourites and mix the food colouring through. Make sure you go for really nice vibrant colours here. Once all of your colours are mixed through, you want to put each individual colour into a separate snap seal bag. You can see roughly how much batter I've got, so we're going to make a lot of stripy cake right now. I'm going to start with my red. I'm going to use a pair of scissors to cut off quite a thick chunky tip. They're basically acting as piping bags, so if you've got a stack of piping bags, feel free to use those, but not many people have 6 of those laying around. So I'm going to start by piping a nice thin line, not too thin or you'll be here for hours, of my first colour, which for me is going to be red, and then I'm moving on to orange. Cutting off the tip, make sure it doesn't go into your cake. And I love this particular cake recipe because you can see how kind of thick and chunky it is. It holds its shape really well and one colour doesn't bleed into the next. You just want to keep on lining your vanilla layer cake in all the different colours, and you'll notice once you get to the next layer, once you've finished your first full layer of cake, you can actually start lining the exact same colour again on top, so you kind of end up with like a double thick line. The cake batter recipe that I've given you works perfectly for a double batter in this tin, and I'll leave dimensions for that down below. That is one of the most amazingly vibrant cake batter trays I've ever seen. That one's going to go off into the oven, and it's only going to take between 14 and 16 minutes to bake, but you'll know it's done when you press lightly in the center and it springs back and doesn't sink. Look at this. This is my version of heaven. I love a good rainbow cake. Before I tip that out, I'm just going to take a knife and I just want to run around the outside edges. We've got the baking paper on the bottom, so I'm not too worried that I'm going to get into too much trouble with sticking. I've also lined just a board with another bit of baking paper, and I'm going to invert that onto my tray, making sure not to touch those hot edges, and flip it. As you lift that off, you reveal the most amazing, gorgeous, vibrant striped rainbow cake. This is how we get the rainbow stripe technique inside our bundt. I'm going to pop this off into the freezer. I don't want it to be frozen solid, but I want it to be really, really nice and cool because that's going to make it a lot firmer to cut. For your chocolate bundt, I'm gonna take 4 ounces of my Nestle Toll House semi-sweet chocolate morsels, and I'm gonna mix them together with a 1/4 cup of cream and microwave them on 30-second intervals, stirring in between. It's only gonna take about a minute, but what I'm gonna create here is a really delicious semi-sweet chocolatey river. With my chocolate syrup done, and that's what's gonna make this bundt cake super rich and fudgy, I'm gonna take all of my cake ingredients now. This is a super simple recipe because you really just pop it all together and mix. So in goes my sugar, my eggs, and your eggs should be at room temperature for best baking and rise result. Water also at room temperature. I've got a little oil which helps to keep our cake really nice and moist. My Nestle Toll House cocoa powder because this is gonna be a chocolate cake. I've got my butter. Now, generally speaking, I'll use salted butter. If you don't have salted butter, you can also use unsalted butter and just add a pinch of salt to your recipe. A little bit of vanilla to really bring out that flavor, and a little bit of flour with that baking powder already combined. I'm gonna mix that through before adding my chocolate syrup. I'm gonna pour in my Nestle Toll House semi-sweet chocolate river mixture, and this is gonna make that color really dark and that flavor really fudgy. With our chocolate cake mixture all mixed and ready to go, you wanna take some non-stick cooking spray and give your bundt tin a really good spray. Don't forget to do the middle bit. I always forget to do the middle bit. So I'm gonna bake like about a 1/2 inch, just a really small amount of chocolate batter on the bottom of my bundt tin, which is actually gonna be the top of my bundt cake. Don't put too much here, or else you're not gonna have enough room for those love hearts to sit on top. We're gonna bake this for about 7 minutes so that it's par baked and it gives our little love hearts a nice little flat spot to sit on. I'm gonna use my spatula just to spread it around a little bit, and into the oven it goes. While that guy's baking, you can take your cake out of the freezer. It doesn't have to be frozen solid, but freezing it makes it a lot easier to handle. So I'm just gonna flip it, and that baking paper means it doesn't get stuck to my board. Peel off the baking paper on top, and I'm gonna use a bread knife just to level it off so that all of my hearts are gonna be the same sort of height. So just carefully, just taking the very, very top off. This is always my favorite part of any rainbow cake, because as you start lifting that cake off, you reveal the beautiful rainbow cake beneath without any oven browning or any of the edging of cakes. It's just stunning. Now that I've revealed my beautiful cake and leveled it off, I'm going to use my love heart cookie cutter, and you can actually do this with any shape, but a love heart's really nice and easy to balance back in our bundt tin. So I'm going to cut love heart shapes as close together as I can. And as I do it, I'm trying to make sure that I get all of the colors of the rainbow in my love heart. So when you're picking your cookie cutter, you need to pick one that's going to fit inside your bundt tin nicely, but that's also going to be able to capture all of those beautiful rainbow colors. You're going to need a lot of these love hearts, so keep cutting until you've used up all of your cake. You can see how firm that cake is, so setting it in the freezer for a little bit really makes it a lot easier to cut, and especially as you start to push it out of those cookie cutters, it stops it from crumbling. Now we want those frozen solids, so while our bundt is baking, our hearts are freezing, and it's time to start thinking about assembly. Now with my bundt cake nice and kind of baked, I'm gonna take my raw batter and I'm gonna put a little bit more of that on top. It's gonna kind of act like a bit of a glue. So I'm just gonna use my spatula and just kind of smear it on. It's gonna melt a little bit because it's raw cake going onto kind of warm hot cake. You don't need too much here. I'm gonna take my little frozen love hearts now. So these are really, really nice, firm and solid. And I'm gonna place them upside down all the way around that bundt cake, kind of in the middle as much as you can. Leave a little tiny gap in between each of them because otherwise they're not gonna kind of sit in properly in your round shape. Perfect, so you've got all of your little love hearts kind of lined up. I've got my chocolate cake batter in a large piping bag, and this is just so that I can get a really neat fill. So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna fill between my hearts, making sure that I'm giving them each a little bit of personal space. This is a beautiful effect because every slice of bundt cake you're gonna get rainbow love heart chocolate, rainbow love heart chocolate. So it really makes for a beautiful surprise inside effect. Coming down to the inside, and I'm really squeezing that chocolate cake batter in there because I want to make sure that I don't end up with any gaps or air bubbles inside my cake. When I first tried a twice baked cake technique, I wasn't 100% sure how cake would go being baked twice in the oven. I was absolutely sure that it would come out dry, but the moist cake around the outside actually protects it. And the fact that we've got a little bit of oil in both of these cake mixes means they're a little bit moister straight from the get-go. I'm going to use my spatula now, and I'm just going to smooth that around, but you don't want to overfill your bundt tin. Be really gentle here. We don't want to disturb the points of our love heart. I'm going to give my bundt a couple of just soft taps on the bench to make sure that chocolate cake mixture's gone all the way down, and that is going off into a moderate oven for about 30 minutes, but you'll know it's done when you touch around the outside edges, not the middle, the outside edges or the inside edges, and it springs back when touched. So my bundt cake is baked to perfection. It looks fantastic, but before I take that out, I'm going to let it sit in that bundt tin for 15 minutes. That's going to allow it to sweat a little bit, which will help it release really easily when I go to turn it out. In the meantime, because we can frost this one up warm, I'm going to make a really simple ganache using my Nestle Toll House semi-sweet morsels. I opted for semi-sweet right the way throughout this cake, but specifically for the ganache because the cake itself is quite sweet, and this is going to take away from that super sweetness of like a milk chocolate. Feel free to switch it out if you're a milk fan or if you'd like something a little bit darker. To make my ganache, I'm just going to take my cream and I'm going to pour it over top of my Nestle Toll House chocolate morsels. And then that's going to go into the microwave, 30-second intervals, stirring really well in between. It should only take about a minute, and we're looking for a beautiful, smooth, glossy river of chocolate. Now I'm going to take my bundt and I'm going to put it straight onto a cake board. But to do this, I'm going to turn the cake board upside down, stick it on top of the tin, feel the tin to make sure it's not too hot, and then I'm going to flip it. I'm going to let the weight of the bundt pull down so that I'm kind of not having to do too much to get it out. And there's our bundt cake. Looking rather like an unassuming, boring chocolate bundt, but it's going to be anything but when we cut into it. Just giving my ganache a quick stir around to make sure it's glossy and smooth and silky. And I'm going to spoon it on because I want it to kind of gather in little pools around the bottom of my bundt. Oh, there's nothing better than the smell of a rich, slightly dark chocolatey ganache. I always like to give ganache a couple of taps just to smooth it out a little bit. Not too hard because I definitely don't want a broken cake stand. But essentially this is your surprise inside Rainbow Love Heart bundt. This is always the part that makes me the most excited, but also the most nervous because you never know what's been going on here until you actually cut. It's the moment of truth. So when we cut in, slicing down, the cake feels amazing. It's so soft and spongy. We did it. We made Not Your Nana's bundt cake. I love this guy because it's so unassuming, and when you arrive at the party with just another bundt cake, and then people cut into it, they're going to be amazed at how we got a rainbow striped love heart baked right inside. I'm beyond excited about how this turned out. For me, this is the ultimate Valentine's Day cake. It says love, it says rainbow, and it's smothered in chocolate. It doesn't really get much better than that. Bear in mind when you're serving this, not every single slice is going to have the exact amount of rainbow because we did have those little gaps of chocolate. So with your first slice, make sure that you have a beautiful amount of rainbow on both sides of your piece, and then cut even-sized pieces around the bundt cake, which will help you to keep that even rainbow look on all of your pieces throughout. A big thank you to Nestle Toll House for teaming up with me on today's video. I had so much fun coming up with an average bundt cake that's anything other than average using Nestle Toll House ingredients. If you guys want to see some other really creative, exciting ideas for recipes that I've come up with also using Nestle Toll House ingredients, you can click here to check out the Nestle Toll House playlist. Thanks very much for tuning in to My Cupcake Addiction.